Warning: the episode you are about to listen to most likely contains graphic language, details of violence and murder, and may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. What's up, everybody?
Hey guys, we're back for episode number 23 of Murder with My Mother.
The true crime podcast where, you guessed it, I talk murder with my mother. What's up, Mom?
Lots of stuff's happened since last time.
Yeah.
Our world's kind of gone a little bit more back to normal, and people are walking around, cruising around without their masks on now, more than they were last time we recorded.
Yeah, people are more used to it now, but I think what the numbers, places are kind of getting higher in some places. I know the States for sure.
The States has gone up, they said, by 50%, so.
But it's super weird because they said that you can still, if you're fully vaccinated, you can still carry and spread the virus.
To people that are not vaccinated.
Yeah. So I guess that's the herd immunity thing, right?
Yeah.
Huh. So get vaccinated if you want. And just wear your mask if you don't. I don't know.
Yeah, so there's that, and we've had some exciting developments in our family. Danica had her gender reveal, and I'm not sure if you guys saw, I posted a picture of the results on our Instagram page.
And I was right.
The smoke was pink.
Yep.
That came out of the cannon, so...
I told you, I knew this had to be a female. There's no way that the way that I'm feeling, it's like I'm like a stone
cold bitch.
Yeah, literally.
And I've been manifesting it to be a girl since before it was even conceived, because I bought Danica a pink fertility bracelet for Christmas, and I've been getting my nails painted pink every time since January, so
yes,
you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we'll see. You're welcome. Be like, no one's welcome. No, I'm sure she'll be great. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's nice. I feel really blessed that we got a boy first, and now we're going to have a little girl. And yeah, I'm looking forward to buying all the girl clothes, and she'll probably be like a total tomboy like you were, but I dressed you in ruffles for your first 4 years until you started to protest, so.
Yeah, so we got 4 years, I guess. Well, anything pink is like, oh my god, this pink goes together, and this pink, and this pink, and this pink, but... I'm more like this pink and this pink because I'm like no emotions right now, so that's been fun.
Except for anger.
Yeah, which is awesome. Which is whole, like, I'm usually pretty like emotional, at least like Facebook videos, probably like at least 2 get me usually every day. Like I'm like, oh my god, it's kind of sad. But now it's like, no, it's like, I don't know. We got 6 more months of this.
The funniest part was when you were pregnant with Kiers, everything made you emotional.
I cried about everything, but he's also very emotional.
Yeah.
So, and he has a weird connection to animals, and when I was pregnant, I felt like overly connected. Like, okay, don't get me wrong, I like animals. I really like them. Love my dog, love animals, but when I was pregnant with Kiers, it was like heightened, like, animal rights activist. Like, I swear that's what he's gonna be.
And Kiers calls himself the dog whisperer.
Yeah.
He's waiting. He's counting down the days until he's 12 because he wants a Shiba Inu.
Oh, God. And I've heard about it like every 5 minutes for the last like 6 months.
Yeah, so hopefully...
You're getting a sister.
Hopefully this child doesn't have the McDonald triad.
Yeah, because it will be a Sagittarius, and if you look up a lot of astrological signs of serial killers, their zodiacs, most of them are Sagittariuses, so I didn't plan that one too well, so...
Perfect.
Woo!
Wouldn't that be ironic?
If we had to cover the case of my own daughter murdering somebody, yeah, it probably would be, but
This one is really close to home.
Yeah, hopefully I'm still in the episode.
We'll have to import your brother.
But speaking of female serial killers, today we have a special episode that Mom chose. Episode 23 is that of the murders, I guess, of, what was it, 7 men?
7 men in a year, and they were all killed by a female serial killer, which is very rare.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys probably know because this is a pretty highly publicized case, and you may have seen the movie that was based not so loosely on it. The movie was called Monster with Charlize
And
Theron.
she killed that role, like no
Yeah,
pun intended. Like she did a really good job. She's one of the most beautiful women probably
in
in
the world,
Hollywood
yeah.
and in the world. But the way that the makeup and just the acting was like impeccable. It was amazing. Go watch the movie Monster if you haven't seen it. It's great.
So we are going to be covering the people that were murdered by Aileen Wuornos today. And I mean, it's kind of sad, as you'll hear, because there's a lot leading up to her being the way she was. And
Yeah, she had a lot of misfortune in her life and a lot of trauma. And for all of our avid listeners, you guys know that we talk about things that lead up to becoming like that. Like it's like, okay, are these people created? Are these people born evil? Which I believe some people are born evil, but I also believe that some of these people don't stand a chance to not turn evil because of all the stuff they go through.
which doesn't excuse what they did.
No, oh no, no.
And these cases are also pretty heinous. So beware because we're bringing you a lot of gory shit.
Yes. So with that, we will get right into episode 23. We hope you guys enjoy the episode.
Aileen Carol Pittman, otherwise known as Aileen Wuornos, was born on February 29th, 1956 in Rochester, Michigan, to young parents. So her parents, Diane Wuornos, and her father, Leo Dale Pittman, were married when Diane was 14 and Leo was 16.
Damn. Was it a
And
shotgun wedding or did they just get love married?
I'm not sure because they had a child before Aileen, and his name was Keith, and he was 1 year older than Aileen. And by the time the mom was ready to have Aileen, like 2 months before, she'd already left Leo.
And how old
And
was she when she had Aileen?
she was 14 when she got married, and she was 16 when she had
So
Aileen.
she was probably 15 when she had the first
Keith,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, and the dad, Leo, was a son of a bitch. He was schizophrenic. He was diagnosed schizophrenic, and Eileen never met him because he was in jail by the time she was born for kidnapping and sodomizing children.
Hmm. So he was a nice guy.
Yeah, so he was definitely not a pleasant human being. And he committed suicide in jail in 1969.
So you have to think already, she was born in when? 1956.
56.
So within 12 years of her life, she's already had to. I mean, I'm sure she was protected a little bit about what her dad did, but probably not.
I don't really think so because right before she turned 4, her mother abandoned her and her brother Keith with her parents.
Hmm. So she had at least abandonment issues then, because, yeah.
So her maternal grandparents, Lori and Britta, is who she was abandoned with, and her brother Keith also was. And they were both alcoholics, and the grandfather was apparently really abusive, Eileen said. Some of the family members said it wasn't true, but she said that her grandfather physically and sexually abused her. And it kind of makes sense because by the time Eileen was 11 years old, she was giving out sexual favors in her neighborhood to the other neighborhood boys for cigarettes and spare change.
Well, and that's not a usual, like a child's usual go-to,
No.
so obviously that's probably because it's learned behavior, right?
Yeah, I mean, using your body sexually is definitely learned behavior. You wouldn't think
Yeah.
to do like that was a big bargaining tool if that
No.
hadn't happened to you. So I believe her. And when she was 14 in 1970, she became pregnant by one of her grandfather's friends, who she said was an accomplice that he used to bring over to have sex with her.
That's so
So
fucked up.
super fucked up and super, super sad. Like,
Yeah.
human trafficking happens to a lot of people, and it's, like back in those days, I think it was so prevalent and no one really talked about it,
Well, and that's the thing that we touch on a lot of episodes, even with the fact where all the family's like, "Oh my God, no, that's not true," da 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 da. But she's just saying it how it is. I feel like she's like transparent because what does she have to hide now? By
Yeah.
saying like, "Oh yeah, my grandpa invited people over to have sex with me. I had sex with him. I did sexual favors for kids in my neighborhood." Like for sure, that is probably true because then look where her
Yeah,
life
and why would you even
went to.
admit to that if you didn't do it?
No.
So she also says in her later years that she had a sexual relationship that was consensual with her brother Keith, who was 1 year older than her.
I don't know how consensual it can be when it's incestuous, but I mean,
I guess it's a
some flowers in the
consensual,
attic
yeah.
shit.
It is Flowers in the Attic shit for sure.
That's my favorite book.
So, yeah, so she got pregnant at age 14 and then she was shipped away by her grandparents to live in a home for unwed mothers until she gave birth to a baby boy in 1971 who was then taken away from her right away and put up for adoption. So that's also got to super fuck you up.
Yeah, especially at such a young age.
Yeah, so I guess Aileen really didn't stand a friggin' chance.
No, already, and she's only 14.
Yeah,
Like,
she was 15 when she gave birth,
but still, I mean, all of that happening to you by the age of 15 now, it's like,
yeah.
I'm glad that there's a lot less stigma put on, because the thing is, people have sex young all the time, and it's like just a roll of the dice that you're not getting pregnant. If no one's talked to you about safe sex and how to have safe sex, you don't really know. And even like people my age sometimes don't even know that you can only get pregnant when you're ovulating. Like it's like, there's a lot of things that women don't know about their own bodies. And so
And back then it was super bad because
yeah, no one talked about it.
Shame was given to like getting your period, growing breasts.
But there's only shame put on it because of how men sexualize women's bodies.
Yeah, I mean, even to this day, there's still shame put on people for breastfeeding in public. So,
yeah.
Tits are for feeding babies, boys.
Yeah.
So
PSA.
So when
they don't look very sexy anyway after you're done breastfeeding. Like even before you start breastfeeding, like my boobs are starting to do stuff where I'm like, oh my god, like yeah.
So by the time she was 15 and she got her baby taken away, and then that same year her grandmother died of liver failure. So
the one that they said didn't really have a drinking problem.
The one they denied had a drinking problem died of liver failure. And then she quit school because who the fuck wants to go to school when all this shit happens?
Especially when you're 15.
Yeah. And her grandpa kicked her out of the house. I guess he was done. Maybe he didn't like her boobs anymore. I don't really know.
Yeah, God.
So the sad thing is that she turned to turning tricks for like her main source of income.
If your whole life you've been kind of shown that like your body is worth something, like
that's
for
where your value was placed.
Yeah.
So, and then she was living in the woods behind her house.
So sad.
Like, that's really sad. Apparently, the neighborhood kids called her the cigarette pig.
Oh my god.
I know.
Kids are mean.
Kids are horrible.
And again, I'm so happy that people are realizing that trauma,
generational trauma is
a real thing.
Yeah.
And you can actually look at where someone comes from and where they've ended up and usually see there's, if, ands, whys. Like, there's all things about why they got to where they got if they don't work through their trauma. There's a lot of people that are working through their trauma and, they don't end up where you'd think they would, but
it's actually really surprising to me that a lot of people have never known, like, to connect the dots to that. Like,
yeah, weird.
I mean, this is coming to light so much now, but it was so prevalent forever. Like, ever since human beings have walked the earth, generational trauma has been probably the main affectation of humans.
Well, and one thing that I've learned probably in the last couple years that's become more apparent is like probably 95% of the population was molested.
Yeah.
And when you're molested, that actually physically changes the pathways in your brain so that you can't cope like how a regular person would cope with less trauma. All different kinds of traumas are on different scales of affecting you, but something like sexual assault, especially committed by someone that is a close family member,
a trusted
that's gonna
person,
fuck you up really bad, right? And so the fact that people are putting those two and two together now and being more understanding and more, compassionate to people that have had that trauma,
they can see on brain scans the patterns of your brain if you have trauma compared to if you don't.
Yeah.
And so they're treating it differently. Psychiatrists, psychologists, they're treating people with trauma a lot differently than, say, someone that doesn't have trauma. So yeah, we're making a lot of headway, but there's a whole lot of fucked up people in this world because there's a whole lot of assholes that fuck up kids. And that's just terrible. Like,
so hopefully that will stop. I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, it wouldn't happen anymore, but there are still going to be people that even from their own trauma, because a lot of the time, if you're molested or if something like that happens to you, you either go on to have really severe trauma, drug addiction, different coping mechanisms, or you go on to or to offend.
Yeah.
So you're just creating those generations to
Over
have,
and
over and
over
over
and
and over
over and
trauma,
over.
right?
Yeah.
So
So after she was living in the woods by her house, she started a life of petty crime and prostitution. For instance, in 1974, at the age of 18, Eileen was arrested for a DUI and discharging a .22 caliber pistol from a moving vehicle. So she was let go on a promise to appear and never appeared. So there was a warrant for her arrest. And it was put out for failure to appear. And this just is like the beginning of a long list of things.
yeah. I feel though, like once you get started on that path, it's probably really hard to get off of that path because again, she didn't have anybody she could really turn to. It didn't seem like she had a lot of friends. If the kids are calling her cigarette, what do they call her?
Cigarette pig.
Oh, that's so sad.
And she never had anyone show her like how to live life properly.
Or how to be loved, or how to,
No.
she was just abandoned or kicked out or molested or.
So, and then in 1976, when she was 20, she was picked up hitchhiking by a 69-year-old man named Louis Fell, who was the president of the yacht club in Daytona,
Fancy.
Florida. Yeah, and
So she made her way to Florida.
yeah, so she hitchhiked to Florida, and that's where she met Louis Fell. And he, it is said, fell immediately in love with her. She was actually quite attractive at that time. She was 20 years old, and like, what the fuck, 69-year-old man? Like,
Well,
obviously.
they would obviously be really into it, but you have to have severe. I mean, okay, we joke about like daddy issues, stuff like that, but that's a real thing. Like, if you were lacking that older male, positive, good role model or male father figure in your life, I think you are more inclined to try to date older men, and it's like you're trying to relive something you never had.
Well, and I'm going to actually play devil's advocate to that because she was actually like her first sexual experience was probably her grandfather.
That's what I mean, yeah.
So she probably like it didn't seem that weird to her to have sex with an old man because
Yeah, true. No,
her
yeah.
grandfather was an old man.
Yeah.
So they got married like instantaneously, and their wedding was actually in the society pages in the town that they lived in.
So he was a somebody.
He was a somebody, and when you look at the rest of her life, it's almost unbelievable that she married the president of the yacht club. But it did not last very long because Eileen got drunk at their local bar and beat Louis Fell with his own cane. And he was scared of her after that, and he got a restraining order and promptly annulled the marriage. So, and then in 1976, the same year, she was charged with assault for throwing a cue ball at a bartender's head in a bar and hitting him in the head with it.
So obviously she would drink and then her demons would kind of I mean, her demons were kind of always on the surface, but it seems like alcohol really brought them to the forefront.
Definitely. Yeah, she was definitely a handful.
But imagine how much aggression you would have if all this fucked up shit has happened to you your whole life.
Well, and her life just keeps getting better and better because on July 17th of that same year, her brother died.
The one that
her
she
brother
had that
lover.
consent. Yeah,
her brother died of
her brother
esophageal
lover.
cancer, and then one good thing happened to her. She got 10 grand from his life insurance policy when he died. But she was fucked up and didn't spend it properly. She blew the whole thing. Within a couple of months, she bought a fancy sports car and crashed it. Got some more drunk driving charges. She was just living from hotel to hotel. Like, she never actually used the money and did anything good with it. I think she just blew it all on drugs and alcohol, and I mean, she didn't know how to live. So
no, and I always
feel
say
like we're making excuses for
no,
serial killer,
but I always say though, if you don't work through your trauma will work through you.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening here. And again, in our generation now, people are more aware of that. Back then, you just are like, like wild, and it's if even mental health, right? The awareness of mental health now, because she probably even her dad was had schizophrenia, so she probably had like undiagnosed things even from just doing drugs and drinking and PTSD and all these things, right?
Well, and also
no excuse to kill anybody, but you can
don't grow when you're not given a role model. Like, you're just not going to grow. Like, I left home really young because I was bad, and I
And
mean,
in
I'm sure there
love.
were, yeah, extenuating circumstances, but if I would have had 10 grand at the age of 14, which I'm assuming I was probably around the same mental age as her at
I don't know
20,
though, because you were managing an apartment building at the age of
at
15.
18.
Yo, at 18.
Yeah. I don't know who the fuck lets an 18-year-old manage an apartment building. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
So she had a few more drinking, driving charges here and there. Like, I'm surprised she stayed out of the can for this long.
I'm surprised she
Because,
didn't die in a drinking and driving accident.
yeah, or kill someone, although she may have.
Yeah.
But
Well, she made up for it.
yeah, so in 1981, she robbed a convenience store while wearing a bikini, and she got caught. She robbed it for 33 bucks. So it was hardly even worth it. But she went to jail finally from 1982 to 1983. So then promptly when she got out, she got arrested in 1984 for passing bad checks in Key West, Florida.
Mm.
Key West is beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
but there's actually
I was waiting for that because I know
yeah,
you love Key West.
but there's actually quite a few shady people there. So
Well, yeah, because you have to
Florida.
think if you go somewhere, if you're gonna run somewhere, where would you go? Which we were just talking about this. If you want to kill somebody, probably not the place to go because they're, they have the death penalty and they're really quick to put you to death.
In
And
Florida, yes.
yeah, like
or Texas.
yes, so avoid those two states if you want to go murder. But
Come to Canada.
yeah, you'll get out in 5 years, less a day. But no, I think that if you are trying to hide from someone or hide from something and, the weather's nice, it draws a lot of people there. Same
You
with
could literally,
California.
like, there's so many eccentric people in Key West, Florida that I've spent quite a bit of time there, and you could literally walk around with two different shoes on, your tits hanging out, your hair not brushed, a lizard on a leash. Like, nobody cares down there. It's very, very, very liberal.
Huh.
It's a great, fun, very free-spirited place.
I want to go there.
Yeah, well, we'll go one day. We'll go for Fantasy Fest.
There you go.
It's like the best ever. So then she was also suspected around the same time of stealing a revolver and some ammunition from a store. And it was true because the police found her driving a stolen car and they found a stolen revolver and some ammunition in the car with her. Which a man had just reported that she had robbed him by gunpoint for $300, and that also was probably true.
Yeah, which probably I wouldn't put it past her. Mom, you got a dog. A big dog, too.
I do. He's pretty big. He's over 100 pounds.
Do you ever take him anywhere and get, like, super stinky and, like...
Every single, at least second day.
Well, good. I'm glad I'm not alone that my dog likes to roll in the stinkiest stuff at the park. So, for those long, stinky car rides home, I just started using First Sense dog dry shampoo.
I also started using it, and it's awesome.
It's a lifesaver. So
It is.
I know how much I love dry shampoo to use on my own greasy hair. So if you need it for your dogs, freshen them up. First Sense. They're on Instagram, Facebook, and go to www.firstsense.ca. First Sense, say goodbye to those stinky car rides home.
So around 1986, she'd made her way to Daytona, Florida, and she was hanging out in a lesbian bar.
I wonder if she knew that she was bi-curious, like bisexual?
I think she had had relationships with women previous.
But also, I don't blame her for not,
liking men.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really don't. Because as much as your sexual orientation is not a choice, I think that you would be more inclined having these experiences with men to explore
Women.
Yeah.
So she met a lesbian woman by the name of Tyria Moore at a gay bar, and Tyria was a chambermaid, so she was cleaning rooms at motels, low budget motels, and they instantly basically like U-hauled each other and moved in together right away. And Aileen was very generous with Tyria. She said, you don't have to work anymore. I'll support you.
And she had someone to love.
Yeah,
finally.
and she supported Tyria with the gains of her prostitution and petty theft. And Tyria just lived off of it, no problemo. So turned out that it was...
Yeah, it was a good fit for the both of them, I guess.
Yeah, so in 1989, a lady was looking out her window and saw two women crash a car and run away. And there was a bunch of bodies that started turning up at around this time also.
In that same area?
Yeah, so they were men from all different places in Florida, but they were all kind of appearing on major highways or forested areas right outside highways. I think one of them was on a logging road.
With the same MO, right? So
Yeah, so all of the men were between the ages of 40 and I think as old as 65 was the oldest one.
But again, you have to look at her
Well,
abuser,
it all makes
right?
sense,
Yeah.
right? And they were all shot with a 20 gauge revolver.
Which the ballistics obviously matched every single one, so that's how they kind of tied all of them together.
Yeah, so and the MO was the same. So on November 30th of 1989, an electronics store owner from Clearwater, Florida, named Richard Charles Mallory, age 51, they found him on December the 13th. His body was found several miles away from Clearwater in a wooded area, and he was shot several times with 2 bullets to the left lung by a 20 gauge revolver. And he was naked and, yeah, left at the side of the road. So then in June 1990, there was a naked body of David Andrew Spears, who was 47. He was a construction worker in Winter Garden, Florida, and he was declared missing on May the 19th. And he was also found by a major highway, Route 19 in Florida.
He was also naked, right?
Yeah, and he had been shot 6 times by a .22 pistol. Then we come to June the 6th, 1990.
So she's going quick.
Yeah, at this point she's going quick. 1990, Charles Edmund Karskadon, who was 40 years old. He was a part-time rodeo worker. He had been shot 9 times with a .20 caliber weapon, and his body was wrapped in an electric blanket and was badly decomposing because of the heat. So he'd only been out there for 7 days, but it was really hot. So his car witnesses saw Aileen in possession of his car, and she had also pawned a gun identified as one belonging to him. So then, same time frame, July the 4th, 1990, the car that they crashed, the 2 women crashed, belonged to that of a missing man named Peter Abraham Seams. He was 65 and he was a retired merchant seaman. He left to go to Arkansas and he was never seen again. They never found his body, but they found a palm print in the car after they crashed it because these 2 women were seen fleeing from the car, and they left a bunch of evidence like used condoms and bloody palm prints and blood. And there was a composite sketch done by the neighbor lady that had seen the women fleeing the car, and pretty much everyone in the area where the women lived knew right away who it was.
Yeah, well, they were to look at them.
Yeah, they're a pretty motley crew, for sure. So if you want to look at their pictures, actually, you'll see what we're talking about. Maybe we'll post a picture on the Instagram page of the composite sketch, because it is totally dead ringer for them.
Yeah.
So that was July the 4th when his car was found, and on July 31st, a 50-year-old sausage salesman from Ocala, Troy Eugene Burris, was reported missing, and his body was found August the 4th, 1990, in a wooded area along State Road 19 in Marion County, and he'd been shot twice by a .22 caliber pistol. So that brings us to August. Now we're into September. September the 11th, 56-year-old Charles Richard Dick Humphreys.
So he went by Dick.
Yeah, Dick. Dick's probably what got him into trouble too, because he's
when you're
picked
picking
up the wrong hooker. But the funny thing is this guy was pretty decorated. He was a retired U.S. Air Force major,
They're all decorated.
a
They're all.
former state child abuse investigator,
Oh.
and a former chief of
I mean,
police.
okay, and honestly, I don't want to shame anybody because sex work is your own choice, and obviously, in instances like Eileen, she obviously ended up in that just based on circumstance. And women now have there's the right to choose what you want to do with your body. So it's not saying men are disgusting because they pick up prostitutes, but a lot of these men are married. They're living like double lives where they're just like sexual pigs, like the ones that would pick up like prostitutes on the side of the highway and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Just imagine
Who
like let
knows?
them
Like we
have
can't.
car seats in their car. It's
I
like
know. It's definitely true.
yeah.
So his body was found the day after he went missing, and he was actually fully clothed, but he'd been shot 6 times in the head and torso by a 20
Hmm.
caliber.
Ooh, surprising.
So these were in a couple different counties, but the police were putting it all together because the MO was so much the same, and they were
These
not
cops are
even.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're still in the
Compared
same
to the
state.
ones we don't. Yeah, but sometimes remember Clifford Olson? That was like
Yeah.
literally a 20-minute drive, and they were like, oh God, these kids are
Kids
just
are
going
running
missing.
away.
Yeah,
They're
these,
running away.
yeah,
These fucking kids.
yeah.
Then we come to number 7, Walter Geno Antonio, who was age 62, and he was a trucker, a security guard, and a pervert. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, jeez.
He was actually a police reservist too.
But you have to think, okay, I wonder if because obviously all walks of life pick up sex workers, right? So I wonder because if you look, all of these men are between certain ages, like we were talking about. I wonder if she was picked up by any 30-year-olds, 25-year-olds. Like, I wonder if there's anything you can see where she didn't kill everyone. I wonder if she was just triggered by these men and their ages.
Well,
And
it seems like that was the case, but
yeah,
then also I've heard that, I mean, if you see pictures of her around the time that she was caught, her age was starting to catch up with her. She wasn't even that old, but she looked way older than she
well,
was,
because
and
she
she
was
looked
drinking. She
terrible.
was drinking. She has like that swollen body. Because even if you look at, okay, yeah, obviously being in jail is not ideal, but they get, I mean, not, they don't get the best food, but they get the nutrition where it's like, okay, you're getting your daily things that you usually need. You have sleep. You have,
Yeah.
just all
Yeah,
the
you start
things
to
you're,
look better. Like she
yeah,
looked way better when you see.
yeah, because when she first was arrested, she was like swollen and like just disheveled and like,
She was killing, like, this is November now, and she started in basically in June. She killed
yeah, in
one before
May.
that, but she was just like
That's a
on a
really
fucking,
quick
it's like she
succession. Yeah.
snapped, right?
Very
She snapped
rapid.
and started killing everyone that
But
reminded
that's
her
what I
of
mean.
her grandfather,
Yeah.
probably.
Well, and I know that the first man that she killed, she claimed that he sodomized her and beat her up, and she shot him, which makes sense to shoot him the 2 times to like put him down. But it almost strikes me because the second man she killed, she shot him like what, 6 times or something? I feel like that is almost like PTSD triggered.
Overkill.
Oh, it is overkill because
Yeah.
it's like that crime of passion and protection of, you're being triggered with your PT. She probably had PTSD for 500 reasons. So it's like,
Well, and the first victim was actually a convicted rapist.
mm,
So she claimed at the beginning, we'll talk about how she was caught, but she claimed that all of these men tried to rape her or
see,
raped
I
her.
don't think I believe that,
No, I don't either.
but I mean, I do for some reason believe that because you have to think with all the shit she's been through, she could have killed men a long time ago. She could have started killing, you know?
Yeah, I swear, like she snapped at that point,
Yeah.
and it was definitely people that triggered her for
Well, because
sure.
also you have to think too, if you're going into something like sex work and that's what you've been doing your whole life, it's probably pretty you disconnect and you're able to just disconnect, have the sex, leave, take the money, leave, whatever. But if someone because you're already giving them sex,
Yeah.
but if someone wants to just take it and there's like that control thing and that must have made her feel even smaller than she felt and then she obviously had a gun on her and
Yeah. She had,
yeah, like
she had a lot of guns, but she liked to use the 22. So Walter's body was found shot by a 22 caliber pistol. Surprise, surprise, 4 times. And his car was found. So, like I said, once they put out
Bolo.
the bolo, they started locating the victims' belongings in pawn shops and retrieving fingerprints in all the cars, and they found that Eileen's fingerprints were on pretty much everything. She wasn't careful about anything she did, and she did have a couple of aliases, and so it took them like a couple days to figure out who she was.
Yeah, but she's in the system, so I mean, yeah, then it would be probably pretty easy to run her fingerprints and be like, oh, it's this person with 4 aliases.
Yeah. It all came back to her, and she was pawning stuff, all of their stuff. So
And that's what makes me think that the first one probably was self-defense. The second one probably just triggered easily and then was like, oh fuck, like I killed this person. And then all the other ones were like, well, hey, I mean, may as well, I'm on a roll now. And
I don't even think she was oh fuck about it. Like,
no, probably not.
She was just like, cool, I'm gonna rob them now. Like, you fucking deserved it.
Yeah, and I think at that point you probably place every person that's ever wronged you or done something to you is just there while you're, like it's like almost like an excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on January 9th, 1981, she was arrested on an outstanding warrant after the police followed her and knew who she was. They found her and Tyria staying at a hotel, and they watched them for a while. And 2 undercover cops went into this bar called The Last Resort and bought her drinks all night and played pool with her and all this stuff. And at one point it said that she smashed one of the cops on the back of the head with a pool cue.
She liked to
Yeah, and he
people
said,
with...
what'd you do that for? And she said, sometimes I just can't help myself. And then they followed her to another bar, and she slept overnight there. She just slept on the couch outside the bar. And the next day they invited her to come and have a shower at their hotel room, and she went. I guess you just get a shower wherever you can, really.
Yeah.
So she ended up going back to the bar that they first met her at, The Last Resort. It was a biker bar in Volusia County.
It's funny because that bar is now famous.
Yeah, it is famous.
Yeah.
And so...
That's like all serial killer things. Like people like us, they want to go on like murder tours.
Yeah, we would love to go to The Last Resort.
I would, yeah.
And just like fucking throw a pool cue at someone's head and a cue ball. So then
she did both.
Yeah.
So
they located Tyria Moore the next day in Scranton, Pennsylvania. She was staying with her sister. And she agreed to work with the cops because there was actually some crooked cops that approached Tyria and said, we could make a lot of money from this because we could sell the rights to...
This would be a fucking crazy story.
Yeah, it'd be a crazy movie. There's no such thing as female serial killers, which there was, but not really.
It's not as prevalent as males. And in this time, this was like height of serial killer central in America.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So they got Tyria to keep calling her. She was in jail because she'd been arrested on an outstanding warrant, and they got Tyria to just keep phoning her in jail and like talking to her, like Tyria was saying like, I don't want to be connected to this. People are going to think that I helped you kill.
Well, yeah, because because I think right now what people are thinking, or the police anyway, the ones that are not talking to Tyria, the ones that are really investigating it, probably were thinking both of them were doing this together.
Well, they probably were. I don't know. Like, Tyria knew about all of the murders, and she never told anyone.
And she
was living off of it, and she was in the stolen cars and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So 3 days later, on January 16th, Wuornos confessed to the murders. And that's when she claimed that everyone had raped her, and she just killed everyone in self-defense.
And that Tyria had nothing to do with it. And she completely exonerated her.
She actually said right up until the day she died that she still loved Tyria. Because if you think about it, Tyria was the only person she ever had a close relationship with.
Yeah, and she
except
just
for her brother Keith.
Well, and he died of esophageal cancer, so...
Yeah, well, Tyria, though, was a fucking trifling hoe. Like, she fucking didn't even stick up for her love at all. She just fucking sold her out.
She wasn't a ride or die, that's for sure. But at the same time, I mean, obviously, if you're with somebody and they're committing all these heinous murders,
and
probably
you're living off the proceeds of their prostitution.
Yeah, And she was pretty lucky that she didn't get charged with anything because that is like conspiracy to like, aiding and abetting. Like
Yeah, she
that's
should
so
have been
many
charged with
things.
something.
Yeah.
She should have been fucking charged with being
But
a.
again, that happens a lot because they say, they'll make a plea with you, like an agreement with you, give you a deal where you get fully exonerated, like you're totally fine,
Yeah,
you
for
get immunity.
testifying. Like, I would
Yeah.
never, never sell out for you.
No, me neither.
Like, I would
I would
just
go to
fucking carry
jail.
that shit to the grave.
Same.
Not that I'm planning anything, but.
No, but I mean, hey. I was thinking
So,
about that the other day, like that I'm having a daughter. I was thinking like,
yeah.
yeah, it was like the one time I got
Help her.
emotional.
Yeah, you're making her so cute to have a daughter. You're gonna fight with her so much
I
until she's
know.
like.
That's why I got emotional. I felt sorry for myself. Just
Oh.
kidding. No, I thought like, oh, like I think about like how I feel like even if I'm having a good day and then like something's bothering me, but it's like I'm having a good day and then I like hear from you and then I'm like, like ah, like
Yeah.
start instantly crying. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be that for somebody. I mean, I think I'm already that for Kiers, but
But daughters are different.
daughters, yeah, exactly.
And we're right in the middle of a murder podcast.
Yeah, sorry.
Sidebar, pregnancy brain. But I really like that.
Yeah, well, it is a murder podcast I do with you.
Yeah. So
you better like murder.
she will. A year later, not until 1992, Aileen went to trial.
Well, that's always what happens.
Yeah, and so all of her previous convictions were all admissible.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Which
they were
sucks.
usually they are inadmissible.
Yeah, because it's your past.
But
it's
the prosecution was allowed to introduce evidence related to her other crimes to show a pattern of illegal activity.
I wonder what her defense team, though, because her defense team probably had a lot of shit to be like, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this. Oh, and then she turned 14, and then this happened, and then this happened, and like.
Well,
holy
they
shit.
did. Like I don't know if you guys have ever seen video because it's quite publicized, but her defense lawyer.
Oh God, he's
like a singing lawyer. Yeah. Like he's written songs about it all, and he tried to bring in the evidence that she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder.
She for sure had BPD.
And there was a lot of stuff. Like if you see any sort of video or interview with her, I don't mean for it to be funny, but it's like fucking ludicrous. Like.
Can you play that clip? She's like, I don't really think I did anything wrong. Like,
yes,
I mean, I did, but it wasn't that bad.
Clip of it.
Those men were shot, just shot, and so boom, boom, boom. They weren't cut up, they weren't sliced up, no OJ jazz, And he said, I did the most horrendous crime in the whole wide world.
Not true?
I guess not. All they were was shot and left. If it was a horrendous crime, why didn't I shoot them between the eyes, cut their penis off, stick it in their mouth, do all kinds of gross stuff? All they were was shot and left,
So that's how apologetic Lee was about her crimes. She definitely was a firecracker.
Well, like she said, she's trying to say they were all in self-defense. And she said, look, kind of what I said earlier, like, I picked up lots of guys. How come I didn't kill them all? It's because these guys tried to attack me. I was just trying to protect myself. But, I mean, I think that there's probably other ways. Because even if you pull a gun on someone, they probably will let you go. Right?
Yeah. So. Well, like we've said from the beginning, that was, like, definitely trigger.
Yeah, and you don't go and pawn their stuff and do all, you don't do that if you're just trying to protect yourself.
No.
So, obviously, she saw what happened the first time, what happened the second time, because then she did it 5 more times. So you don't just do that because you're protecting yourself. So as much as I do, in a way, feel empathetic towards things she's been through, obviously there's no
excuse for killing
to kill
many people
7 people in 12 months. Yeah.
So then,
or in any amount of time. He's like, like.
She changed her story later because once everything was coming to light and she knew she was going to get convicted, then she just went on to make sure that her lawyer was trying to get her executed.
Fast track.
Yeah, fast track to being executed. She was incarcerated at the Florida Department of Corrections. And then she ended up getting 5 or 6 She received 6 death sentences. She was never charged for the murder of Siems, as his body was never found.
Yeah, and it's hard to
And
pin a murder.
they had enough on her, obviously.
Well, and it's hard to pin a murder on if there's no body, right?
Yeah.
No body, no case is usually what they say. Now, obviously, it's very different, and they can kind of go with different evidence and stuff like that. But back then, yeah, if you had her on 6 other cases, there's kind of no point in, because she could have been found not guilty about that one because they didn't have enough evidence on her to convict her of it. So
Well, and she scored a 32 out of 40 on a psychopathy scale, which scores above 25 are considered
psychopaths,
psychopathy.
Yeah.
So she did spend the rest of her life in Florida at the Broward Correctional Institution for Women on death row, and then she was transferred to Florida State Prison for execution. She tried to appeal for some reason,
Which is weird because she wanted to fast track it.
Yeah,
because
she
really
was kind of all over the place. So.
Yeah, but again, mental health and all the things she's been through. Really, I mean, I don't blame her for having no faith in wanting to be alive anymore because really.
Well, and she flipped and flopped. She said, "I killed those men. I robbed them as cold as ice, and I do it again too. There's no chance in keeping me alive or anything because I'd kill again."
But then she, on the flip side, says like, like when she was sentenced, she was talking to the judge saying, like, you're a horrible person. You're sending a rape victim to the death penalty. And then she said, like, I hope your kids get raped in the ass, like right to the judge. And the judge.
Yeah. It was like famously, her trial was like famously inappropriate. Like she was very inappropriate. All sorts of stuff at everybody, and she then found religion at the end. So she was actually adopted by a lady down the street from the jail who was just a couple years older than her as a child. She was adopted as a grown-ass woman as a daughter.
But it's weird because this woman actually just mostly saved animals that were in need, but she got like the call from the Lord.
She said God asked her to adopt Aileen Wuornos, and Aileen went for it, but then they got in fights later, and she wasn't talking to her at the time of her execution. The only person she was talking to was a childhood friend that came to visit her once in a while called Dawn Bopkins. That was it. She thought everyone was out to get her in the jail. She said they were poisoning her food. She said they wanted to rape her.
Well, by that time, I think that her mental health was taking over. If it hadn't already, obviously, when you decide to kill 7 people, you probably have pretty bad mental health issues. But I feel like if you're put in somewhere you know you're going to die, I think everyone on death row goes a little bit crazy. You hear about those people that just get really calm and serene and, they kind of, those are the people, though, that I feel like they own what they've done, and they, like, say it with, like, I was this person, I've really changed. They're also in there for, like, 20, 30 years by the time they get to that. But I feel like for her, she flipped and flopped so much because of her mental illness that she was, like, all over the place.
And I don't think she ever wanted to take responsibility for her stuff, right? So she said her last words on camera were, "Thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass. You guys are going to execute a raped woman."
Well, and in a way, I mean, I think when you are a victim so much in life, that is something that just becomes natural for you to be a victim and have that victim mentality of she didn't deserve anything that happened to her, and it is really hard to wrap your head around it. But at the same time, 2 wrongs don't make a right. It's not an eye for an eye kind of thing, right? It is hard for her because she didn't also die right away. Like you have to sit there and you have to think about it and you have to think about what you did. And I feel like some people, they can't own up to their shit.
I don't think she ever did.
No.
So her execution took place on October the 9th, 2002. She declined her last meal and decided to have a cup of coffee instead. And
talk about feeling more anxious.
Yeah, and her last words were, "Yes, I would just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back. Like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie. Big mother ship and all. I'll be back. I'll be back."
And she died at 9:47 a.m.
Yeah, so
she was the 10th woman in the United States and the 2nd in Florida to be executed since 1976. because they restored capital punishment in 1976. So
Crazy shit, man.
she was cremated, and her ashes were spread beneath a tree in her native state of Michigan.
By Don Botkins.
Yeah. So, yeah, they had a funeral for her, and they played a song by Natalie Merchant called Carnival, which I don't know that song, but
I know
seems
either, but
fitting
it
for the
seems
life she lived, I
fitting.
guess.
Yes. So there was, like I said, there's a couple different movies made about her, and Monsters, one of them loosely based on her.
I think it's not loosely. I think it was like pretty well based on her.
I think so, but there were a couple different, like I watched the movie.
They really
kind
got
of in
someone,
prep.
to play Tyria Moore did not look anything
No,
like her.
that's why I say loosely.
Well, that's the only thing that was loosely, because
Yeah.
who was it? What's her name?
It's Christina Ricci.
Christina Ricci, yeah, she plays her. But if you look at a real picture of Tyria Moore,
Yeah.
I'm getting a whole different vibe.
Tyria Moore must have fucking had some input onto who
She
was
must
playing
have,
with her.
yeah. So I want the girl from, I'm trying to think of what Christina Ricci's
Addams
even
Family.
in. Yeah.
I want the girl from Addams Family to play me, because we
Yeah.
look alike, but they don't at all.
But yeah, even the fact that, I mean, okay, when you get out of a relationship where someone has really wronged you, like let's just say, right? And because obviously Tyria Moore did wrong in Eileen's eyes, but then the fact that she still was in love with her at her death. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just, she clearly didn't look at things with a clear view, because
Well, I'm pretty sure she was pretty fucking crazy.
yeah, because it came out later even too that Tyria Moore was trying to sell her out, and those cops everyone was trying to sell her out to get rich and get rich quick, and yeah.
I mean, I think that a lot of her behaviors were disassociative. Like,
Yeah.
I think if she was tried
Do you
in
blame
Canada
her?
and
Yeah.
had probably a lawyer that was actually understanding and not some hillbilly that was singing songs while he was trying to get her to the death penalty, I mean, she probably could have gotten off as being mentally unfit, for sure.
Well, and if something like this happened today, I think she would have got off. I think she would be, especially, like you said, in Canada, but I feel like she would be in a center for mental health, like a rehabilitation, somewhere where she can. I agree. Because look at the guy who cut the guy's head off on the Greyhound.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's out already.
He's out living a new life under a new name and everything.
Yeah.
So the fact, because they could see that this was something that was done under duress, under obviously mental illness.
Yeah, there's a lot of cases, and I believe that she fit the bill. I mean, you're put through that much stuff.
Yeah, and
I mean, she definitely wasn't a model citizen before she started killing people, but
no, but she almost wasn't given a chance to be anything else.
Although were any criminals? A lot of them.
Some of them you hear. That's the thing, right? Were you born evil, or did you become that way? I think with her, she was just not given a chance to ever be anything but. And it's almost like you go into a self-defense mode because everyone around you's evil, so why shouldn't you be? Which obviously is not a good logic, and that, again, mental health plays a big part in that. But
and we don't even know if she could have been normal if any of that stuff didn't happen to her, because it all happened to her at such a young age that it was never discovered what she would have been.
But that's why I feel like she was never given a chance, right?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the pictures of her when she was little, there's pictures of her. I mean, okay, not saying much because she smiles in all her pictures. That's why I was even saying the cover art for this one's gonna be hard because she's smiling in every fucking picture, right up until she died.
Yeah.
But if you look at pictures of her when she was little, it's just this smiling little angelic
girl,
yeah, and it's sad. It is sad, but again, letting your trauma run your life, it will run you to, not obviously in Canada, but to death row if you let it, because you can't just be a victim to all the things that have happened to you, as hard as that is. Obviously, you do have to work through your trauma, or your trauma will work through you.
Well, and another thing along the way, once you are an adult, or once you get away from the stuff that you grew up with, I mean, a lot of people find a better way in life and make a path that's productive, and she didn't do that. So
yeah.
Anyway,
that was episode 23. Thanks, Mom. That was a great one.
Yeah.
I've always been waiting to do Aileen. Lee
Wuornos, an interesting character.
Yeah, you guys should definitely, if those video clips or the voice clips were, those were just the tip of the iceberg, because she does a lot of interviews and she says some out there shit. So
It's actually pretty entertaining.
It is, yeah.
I found one of the best ones I found was an interview with 60 Minutes Australia. She was doing world
oh yeah,
wide
she
coverage.
was yeah. And that was before that was even really a thing, because this is the early 90s.
Yeah. So if you guys enjoyed the episode, please give us another listen in 2 more weeks where it will be Danika's turn to come up with episode number 24. And then we also got to work on a big one, maybe a 2-parter for episode 25, because it's going to be our
25th
25th,
episode.
our quarter century episode.
Yeah, so send us any requests, any of the ones you guys want to hear. Again, Murder with My Mother podcast on Instagram. Email us, murderwithmymotherpod@gmail.com. Just send us your suggestions. If you guys have any big ones you want us to do, it can be from anywhere. It can be global. It can be from anywhere. Anything that you
Anything,
guys...
yo.
Yes, anything, yo.
Just DM us.
Yeah. Slide in the DMs.
Slide in
So,
the DMs with your...
Mom and I are going on a boat trip this weekend. I'm pretty excited about it. Because we do spend time together when we do our podcasts and when we talk on the phone every day. Stuff like that.
Yeah, but
I'm
we
excited.
usually try to do one mother-daughter trip once a year.
Last year we went to a Soyuz and did a bunch of mushrooms, and that was pretty fun.
That was pretty fun, actually.
I can't do mushrooms this time because Kiana will, or the baby will,
Be born.
be
with some
really
sort of-
psychedelic.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so no mushrooms this year. Well, I could still do mushrooms.
yeah, but how fun
and,
would that be to be by yourself
I don't
just
know,
doing
it might be fun.
True. Could be pretty entertaining for me. So
Anywho,
we hope you guys have a great
yeah.
week. And again, don't throw your cigarettes out the windows. Don't do any of that stuff.
our
Wildfires.
province is burning, and we have over 1,100 wildfires burning in our province right now, and we've just declared a state of emergency today.
And we just got out of a state of emergency from the fucking pandemic. So
Yeah.
keep your cigarettes in your ashtrays. You should just quit smoking altogether because it's disgusting. So unless
Well,
it's a doobie. So.
I like smoking, but if you put it in a bottle of water, that would be a good idea. I saw somebody fucking throw a cigarette out the other day. I was behind
Did you
them.
follow them?
I
would've.
actually shot them with a 22 caliber pistol. Just kidding.
Well, we love you guys, and we will talk to you in 2 more weeks for episode 24.
Okay, stay safe, motherfuckers.
Bye,
Bye.
bitches.